These are words that we rarely think about when we think about our own language, but they're really, really important to understand when you're trying to learn another language. Let's get into it. The first one is subject. Subject. The subject is the thing that does the action in the sentence. Let's take a simple example. I ate pizza. Who ate the pizza? I did. I is the subject of this sentence. It's the thing or the person that is doing the action. Let's go to the second word, which is verb. The verb is the action in a sentence. In the sentence, I ate pizza, the action is ate, past tense. Right? This is the verb, the action in the sentence. Let's continue on to number 3, which is object. The object of a sentence is the thing that receives the action of the verb. So in the sentence, I ate pizza, pizza is the object. Subject, verb, object is the classic order that English grammar uses. Not all languages follow this order. This is really important for you to know because you're going to have to get used to swapping these positions around depending on the language that you're studying. The next one is noun. Noun. You might remember from elementary school, a noun is a person, place, or thing. So a noun can take many different positions in the sentence. For example, in the dog ate pizza, dog is a noun and pizza is a noun. Let's move on to the next word, which is adjective. Adjective. An adjective describes a noun. So in a sentence like, I ate delicious pizza, delicious is the adjective. It describes the noun pizza. Let's move on to the next one, which is adverb. So like an adjective, an adverb gives us extra information, but in this case, it's about a verb. So in the sentence, I quickly ate the delicious pizza, quickly is the adverb. The adverb gives us information about how the verb was done. So it tells us how I ate the pizza. In this case, I did it really, really fast because it was super delicious, obviously. Let's talk about the words clause and sentence because these two are really closely related. A clause is one of the standard kind of building blocks of an English sentence. A clause is something that has a subject and a verb. So for example, I ate, that's a clause. And a sentence, very, very similarly, is an independent clause. That means it's a clause that can stand on its own. We don't need any other information in order to understand the sentence. So our example, I ate pizza, is an independent clause. We don't need any other information in order to understand that sentence, right? It's very clear. However, if we say something like, because I was hungry, we need more information to complete that thought, right? So that is an example of what's called a dependent clause. It depends on other information in order to complete the sentence. So in this clause, we have a subject, I, and we have a verb, was, right? But it requires more information to complete the thought. This is what's called a dependent clause. So there are two types of clause, and a clause doesn't always necessarily mean that it is a sentence. So it's very important to know the difference between these two. Okay, the next word I have on my list is conjugate. So conjugate is a verb, which means to alter the form of a verb in some way. So the process of changing the verb from one tense to another tense is called conjugating. Next is the word pronoun. A pronoun is a grammatical feature of language. We must have pronouns in order to speak in English. I don't know a single language in the world that does not have pronouns. So it's always very silly to me when I see people say, I don't believe in pronouns. It's like you have to believe in them. So a pronoun is a word that we use as a stand-in for a noun. Remember how I said a noun is a person, place, or thing? A pronoun is a word that we use to represent that person, place, or thing, or to refer to that person, place, or thing. So that means he, she, you, they, all of those words are pronouns. Anybody who says they don't believe in pronouns is making a very, very silly mistake and revealing something about themselves. Okay, the next word is nominalization. Nominalization. I know that this looks really big and long and scary, but it's actually super, super simple. So let's take an example like I like to hike. If you could say that in a different way, you might say, I like hiking. This is an example of nominalization. We've taken to hike from this sentence, and then it has become a new form. It has this ing ending over here. It has become a noun. So this process of changing a verb into a noun is called nominalization, and the resulting noun that it produces is what's called a gerund. This is the next word on our list. So a gerund is a verb that has been turned into a noun and that functions in the position of a noun in the sentence. Gerunds can be a little bit tricky to identify because it's not like you can just look at the verb ending and know that, oh, it's ing, therefore it must be a gerund. No. So we have to pay very, very close attention to the grammatical structure of the sentence to identify whether something is a verb or is a gerund form. Okay, the next word is causative. Causative. So the causative form or a causative way of expressing means to cause someone else to do something for you. So in English, we have words like have, get, and let. Like, for example, can you have someone do that for you? Or can you get someone to do that for you? Or can you let that person do that thing? Those are all examples examples of causative words. So we're causing someone else to do something. So causatives in other languages may be very, very different. And this might be one of the more challenging kinds of grammar points to wrap your head around when you're learning another language. So let's look at our friends, the pair, passive voice and active voice. Maybe some of you remember this from grammar school, but in case you don't, passive voice is when the subject or the doer of the action is unknown or is hidden, and active voice is when the person who has done the action is at the focus of the sentence. So an active voice sentence is I ate pizza, right? I ate pizza, we know who did the thing, we know who ate the pizza, it was me, I. However, if we change that to passive, we would say the pizza was eaten. Oh my. So it's very important to understand the difference between active voice and passive voice. English tends to like using the active voice a lot. We like lots and lots of clarity in our communication, but there are some languages that might rely a lot more on passive voice. So it's very good to make sure you understand the differences between these two in English so that you have a good foundation for when you go into your other language or the next language that you're working on, so you can understand why and when these things are applied. Okay, let's go on to the next one, which is preposition. Ah yes, preposition. Preposition refers to those little tiny words that we use to show relationships between words. So for example, at, in, by, on, for, to. These are all examples of prepositions. They are tiny, but they are very important because they tell us certain things. Like if we say something like, I'll be there at 10 o'clock, it's very different from I'll be there by 10 o'clock, right? Depending on the language you're studying, they might not have prepositions, they might have something similar to prepositions, but it's very important to be aware of what these words are called so that you can understand and kind of conceptualize their purpose in English as you move on to your next language. Next is articles. Ah yes, articles. Articles are very simple on paper. These are the words and the. If you're a native English speaker, you've been using them all your life and you've probably rarely thought about when to use and the, right? But when you're learning another language, you might find that they either don't use articles, which might sound confusing to you at first, or they might have different articles, or they might have even more articles. I'm looking at you, German. Get out of here. Get out of here with your articles, German. So articles in English are broken into two different types. There's the definite article, the, and the indefinite article, and an. Let's move on to the next one, which is plural and singular. This one, I hope, is an easy concept. Plural meaning more than one of something, and singular meaning single or one of something. So we talk about the singular form and the plural form when we are talking about nouns. So for example, if I say one cookie, that is the singular form. If I say two cookies or three cookies, that is the plural form. So singular form and plural form is something that will come up for you depending on the language that you're studying. Not all languages express plurals in the same way as English, so that's an important point to keep in mind. So with that in mind, let's take a look at countable and uncountable nouns. Countable and uncountable nouns are things that English speakers don't really think about until they're trying to learn another language and they realize, oh, this is a weird thing I've done my whole life and I haven't thought about it before. So a countable noun is a noun that we can count with numbers 1, 2, and 3, like cookies in my earlier example. But an uncountable noun is something that we cannot count with numbers. Like, how do you count air? Liquids, we don't say one wine. Like, what does one wine mean, right? In context, sure, but usually we have to use some kind of counter word, right? One glass of wine, one bottle of wine, one decanter of wine. We have to use what's called a counter word in order to describe the quantity of that thing. We can't just say one wine, right? So knowing the difference between a countable noun and an uncountable noun is very important as you learn another language. Let's move on to the next one, which is, progressive and continuous. These words are used interchangeably to talk about a continuing action. In English, we have a present continuous, and we have a future continuous, and we have a past continuous tense. These can also be called progressive. So present progressive, past progressive, and future progressive tense. These all refer to actions that are continuing at a certain point, either past, present, or future. So when we talk about continuous tense, we might also use the expression progressive tense, but they refer to the same thing. That's a good one to know. Okay, on to the next one, which is just tense. Yeah, tense is an important word to know because you're going to think a lot about tenses. So tense refers to the type of verb that you are using in the sentence or the grammatical structure of the sentence to refer to a specific time frame. I've used the word tense a lot in this video, so it's very important that you understand tenses. Okay, so the next one is a pair. This is transitive and intransitive verbs. In word number 2 on this list, I explained how verbs do the action in the sentence. They tell us what happens, right? And there are two types of these. They're called transitive and intransitive verbs, and some verbs can actually be both. A transitive verb is a verb that requires a direct object. An intransitive verb is a verb that does not require a direct object. So for example, in our original example, which was I ate pizza, we had pizza there, our direct object. Ate is an example of a verb that can be transitive or intransitive, because I ate pizza is a perfectly correct sentence, right? But so is I ate. So a verb can be transitive or intransitive. But if we use a different verb, like say for example, I bought lunch, we have to have an object there. If we just say, I bought, then what did you buy? We are left without the last piece of the sentence. It's incomplete, right? So that's an example of a transitive verb. While I suppose there are some example situations where you could maybe get away with saying I bought, usually the verb buy is a transitive verb. We need to know what you bought. So transitive verbs and intransitive verbs do have some overlap. There are some verbs that we can use in both senses, but it is important to know the differences between transitive and intransitive verbs because there are some languages where the two verbs are different or they take slightly different forms. So we need to know what the difference is between those two. Okay, the next word is comparative. This is the expression that we use to talk about the changes that we make to adjectives when we compare two things. And we have two ways of making the comparative form in English. One is for very short adjectives and one is for long adjectives. And by long, I mean 3 syllables or more, generally. There are some exceptions here. So for example, when we want to say that something is funny, we can make a comparative form by saying funnier. Or when we want to make a negative comparison, we say that movie wasn't as funny as the first one. And on the other hand, if it's maybe a long adjective like beautiful, we could say the sunset is more beautiful than yesterday's sunset. And if we want to make a negative, we would say that sunset is not as beautiful. So these are the two different ways that we make comparatives. You'll need to know what a comparative is when you're learning another language. And this relates directly to the next form, which is called the superlative. The superlative refers to the most or the least version of something, the most extreme. So to make the superlative form, we again have these two categories of adjectives that we have to change. We make funny into funniest, and for the negative form, we say least funny. And in the case of a long adjective like beautiful, we'd say most beautiful and least beautiful. So these are what are called the superlative forms. Very important to know for your language learning. The last word for this video is conjunction. Conjunctions are those super helpful words that you use to connect your sentences and show relationships between ideas. And, but, or, for, so, nor, yet, those 7, we use those to make different relationships, and we need to know how to use those along with clauses and sentences to make our sentences beautiful and to make our ideas clear and comprehensive. If you haven't seen my writing series, you can find that on my channel, so check that out if you want more information about conjunctions, because they are your friends. Okay, finally, we are at the end. Hooray! I talk so much that it's actually starting to get dark outside. That's really funny. I hope that these words help you as you begin or as you continue your language learning. I know that when I first started studying Japanese, it was really like overwhelming because there were so many new grammatical concepts that were coming at me, and it was the kind of thing that I had never studied formally in school, but that I just knew intuitively. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you found it helpful, please make sure to hit the like button because it really does help the channel, and also subscribe for more videos like this and other things that are about words and vocabulary and communication. See you next time.